So the next part of the speaking test is, of course, part 2, which is usually a bit more challenging for students than part 1. How do you approach a part 2 task? What's your method?
Yes, my strategies for part 2 were actually 2 parts. First, for the preparation time, I decided to write vocabulary and expressions and ideally idioms that I can use that suit the situation. And when it's time for me to speak, I try to stick to the prompt questions as much as possible, so I wouldn't go off track.
Yeah. And so you're talking about the 3 dot points that you always get in an IELTS part 2.
Yes.
Do you find that they're helpful? Do they give you a good idea of things to talk about?
Yes, definitely. Because as I said, my mind often freezes up. So the guide, the 3 small questions that they give me actually helped me a lot to guide my train of thoughts. And so I wouldn't ramble on, for example, off topic.
Do you think it's important to tell the truth in part 2?
No, not at all. in my case, I made up a story because like it's real. I think it's much harder to recall something right on the spot. And also when you stick to a true story, then you might naturally want to get out all the details. And it's hard, and I don't think it's advisable to do that, like within the context of doing a speaking test, right? Because we have to at the same time we have a lot to take care of, like vocabulary, structures, expressions, etc. And that's why I think that trying to make up a story is better than trying to recall something that actually happened to you.
Look, I always say to students, you don't have to tell the truth. I think it's okay to tell the truth. If you immediately can think of a great example to, you know.
I think at the end of the day, just go with go with a method that you feel comfortable with.
As I mentioned, in part 2, you'll be given a task card that contains a few dot points you should talk about during your response. Here's a sample of a part 2 task card on the screen. It says, describe something you saved money to buy. You should say what it was, how long it took you to save enough, why you wanted to buy this thing, and explain how you felt when you bought it. Trang, how would you approach a prompt like this one?
Yeah, I think for this particular question, I would go to a real thing that I actually bought, because that immediately came to my mind when I heard the question, which was an expensive camera. And yes, with that, when it comes to the preparation time, I would think about words that I can use, right? That is related to cameras and technology in general. So I might use the words like gadgets, right? Or cutting edge technology.
And you would actually write those down on your note paper to remind you?
Yes, I would actually write the words that I can think of down, because for me, I don't think I can write an outline for a story. That's not how my brain works.
Okay.
Yes. So unfortunately, I can't think of an outline, and what I do is I write down the words. That's to me is the most important part. And idioms too. So maybe some expressions, some idioms about money, and idioms about shopping, about money, or about my feeling when I got the product. And that's how I function. And when it's time for me to talk, I can just look at the prompt questions, and I think I'm able to I'm able to tell a story.
Yeah, because you're really using the prompt as the outline.
Yes,
and you're writing
right.
down some details that you're going to talk about for each of those parts of the outline. Yeah, great.
For this part, I would like to talk about an expensive camera I bought when I was at my very first job. It was a state-of-the-art gadget from a well-known electronics brand named Olympus. If I remember correctly, I had to save up for at least half a year in order to pull enough money together for this purchase. During that period, I tried my best to tighten my purse strings by cutting back on unnecessary spending, such as going to the movies or eating out. Back then, I was so obsessed with photography that I wanted to get my hands on the most sophisticated piece of equipment on the market so that I could produce high-quality photos by myself. I recall ordering the camera from Olympus's flagship store in Singapore, and it probably took 2 weeks to arrive. And I was absolutely on cloud nine when I finally received it in the mail. I must have gone out immediately after to test out my new high-tech toy.